Hello, I'm Jordan Roth. Thank you for joining us today for episode 14 of the Dallæsthetic podcast. Joining me today is Julie Libersat, a new media artist here in the North Texas area, teaching at TWU and showing in Dallas right now. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Jordan. It's exciting to be live.
Yeah, absolutely. So you do a whole variety of different types of work. We initially met you when you were actually working towards the CAD grant scholarship,
Right.
or not really scholarship, CAD fund program, where you were working on something called Rome Get Lost. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, going back to the beginning. That was 2015, I think. No, 2014 actually.
Yeah.
It was my second year in the area. And it was the first year of the CAD fund also. So I was in grad school at UNT, and my professor, Dornith Doherty, kind of suggested that I shoot the moon with an idea, and that's actually how I approached it. And so thought of a game that gets you lost and prompts you to take pictures of your surroundings. So like a situationist game that prompted you to like move around space in a chance-based kind of algorithm. But you know, it was a pretty big project to propose, and I had no idea what I was getting into, and I'm very kind of lucky that it was such a big push early on, I guess.
And you were able to like speak about it here and there. And
yeah, I've presented on it at the National Art Education Association, like national conference, published an article that I co-authored with an art education professor, Aditi Perez de Miles at UNT. And so that almost like the project became so many versions of itself. And I did ultimately kind of make a couple prototypes that are web applications, but it became a good example of like iterative design process. And
yeah, and even like a card game.
yes, the playing card game is sort of my favorite version of it.
I like it too.
Yeah, but it's actually hard to play if you're walking around and you're shuffling cards. Like, yeah.
Is there still an online version available to play with?
Yeah, you can play. It's game.romegetlost.com.
Okay.
And the website, romegetlost.com, is actually where you can find information, but it's game.romegetlost.com.
Okay.
And it's pretty simplified version of the original idea, but I think also accomplishes it and is almost a little more inclusive of like a lot of ages.
And can you play it just about anywhere?
Yeah, I mean, if you have Wi-Fi though.
If you have Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
okay.
or you have like
decent internet.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, it was designed for downtown Dallas, right?
That was one sort of solution. It just became a lot of technical issues in terms of like, I wanted to make it in the tunnels, and then I realized there's no Wi-Fi
internet
whatsoever.
Yeah. That's a challenge for the tunnels. Right. Yeah. So your work is kind of, we've had a conversation about this once before, and I don't even know how to frame it exactly, but when you look at a lot of parking lots, parking lots in your work, we'll see examples of that in just a moment, but you like parking lots, you like lines and directions and situations where we're interacting with kind of things that are telling us what to do. Mm-hmm. And how does that relate to like your upbringing, and how is America or our situation so unique?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I think Rome really kind of started me thinking about orientation and navigation, because I realized that I was kind of engaging with the landscape in a sort of wandering approach in order to have encounters with kind of objects of our built landscape. And I think I moved back to the United States in 2013 for grad school, and I was living in India for about 8 years. And so that was a place that I could actually kind of get lost. The roads have very few markings. There's like sort of a chaotic traffic modality. And I was there at a time when Google Maps was developing, so sort of, you know, even engaging with the internet as a navigation. Living in India, I was sort of visiting places, and so that kind of interaction with a sort of being in multiple places, maybe psychologically as well as physically, is something that I think about with my work a lot. And so I kind of came back to America and was really at once like familiar but also really foreign landscape, and just really struck by the order in all of the traffic orientation, and how much of a language that it is. If you travel around the world, you know, everybody's got to drive and figure out how to do it, and it's non-linguistic, but it's symbol-based. And so thinking about how we move, but also thinking about how people navigate art spaces, and kind of maybe how they don't engage their bodies, and sort of the ability we have as artists to control people and how they move is sort of something that I seem to play with, I guess.
Tell me about Infinite Loop.
Yes, Infinite Loop. So Infinite Loop is a video installation and series of physical iterations. So it's a Circle 8 highway that I fabricated in 3D printing, as well as this video rendering. So the 3D printed highway lives in a fish tank, and the idea was sort of imagining the future of our infrastructure with climate change. And so I think it was like the year that there was a lot of flooding, and we had some sort of flooded highway intersections. So I got into this entire fish tank hobby, and had to sort of figure out how to have living fish with my 3D print, and eventually abandoned the fish. But I live with it personally in my house.
But there are no longer fish living in it.
There were I did have one day, I think, in the project space at Ro2 where I had fish, and then or like 2 weeks, and
then you got a little nervous about it.
Got a little over some growth.
Yeah.
But I really do. I live with it in my house, and you know, it has sort of gone through multiple stages of algae growth, and the fish are meant to swarm around the highway. And so, but also I wanted the kind of physical engagement of the viewer, being able to walk around the fish tank, and the scale of the highway to sort of make you think about how we view space on our navigation kind of phone, you know, GPS situation, and kind of the way that we see space now, like out of body. Technology helps mediate that.
Isn't it weird though? Like, you even had an issue today, and I'm not picking on you.
I get lost all the time.
When you take a wrong exit.
Yes.
And it's some places, if you take a wrong exit, wow, you're in a lot of trouble.
Really a lot of time. Yeah.
Because you know, these things, just like your Infinite Loop, you see how far you're going to have to go before you can even turn around. And it's just
like flyovers in Texas are so dramatic. And like, I was at that time also doing a research project in an architectural art history class on Highway 75, and kind of just, Texas has such a unique relationship with our highways. It's like a way that we express our identity and kind of pride. So I think that's really interesting. I sort of feel a little bit nerdy sometimes when I admit that I, you know, like wrote a 20-page paper on a highway, but ultimately, like, it's actually driven my formal interest, you know, like thinking about highway design as well as like how technology is changing that, you know, for urban planners, and things are beautiful and elegant, and we're looking at the world from the sky more, and even designing like from a bird's eye view. You know.
And so that kind of brings us to like Mall Mandala, your current project, which is on view at Ro2 Art right now. And with Mall Mandala, you've got, shopping malls surrounded by its parking lot and various kind of topiary type things. What drew you to work on that project?
So I guess like a lot of my work, I end up sort of visiting iterations of it, and playing with making sort of videos as well as physical objects. And with a lot of my work, simulated driving videos that maybe the viewer engages with in a sort of, maybe the video is moving. So on Saturday, I will show the parking lot video that's playing on the arcade in a shopping cart on the kind of basket handle, so that...
And yeah, here's a little bit of it now.
Yeah, so with this piece, I kind of thought of iterating the same space two-dimensionally, kind of three-dimensionally, and then in a simulation, multiple simulations at this point, but sort of thinking about driver's view as if it's first-person shooter perspective in a video game, or there is a video that hovers from the air where you're circling the top of the mall. And tomorrow I'll also debut a kind of new 3D space that's the interior of the mall.
No way. Oh, that's too cool.
That will be on some Google Cardboard that people can just pull it up on their own phone and kind of walk around. I think I'm going to fill the shopping cart with the Google Cardboard, so it's sort of
that's so cool.
a little bit of a... And I'm excited because we're projecting on Four Corners Brewery, which is a sort of new development and gives like a site-specific orientation to the piece because there's a parking lot too.
Yeah.
So I think with Mall Mandala, I was hoping to make a connection between consumption and, you know, a sort of modality in our culture that it really orients us, and we're meditating on of like...
Isn't it weird how beautiful that sort of is?
Consumption spaces, and that's the goal, yeah. So I sort of use the geometry of traditional Tibetan mandalas, and the parking lot is an octagon around it. So kind of, you know, the perfection and order and sort of the slow circling is, you know, I think shopping does sort of put you in a trance.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and in like the spaces themselves, like, are designed to keep you disoriented, so you spend more time there, so you get lost and wander and maybe buy more things. So like literally the ways that architecture sort of like defines our way of moving and way of living.
And then so the installation for Mall Mandala with the new virtual reality component will be as part of Aurora Expanded. And Aurora is in Dallas, I believe starting tonight. But,
it's been all week, actually.
Oh,
well,
yeah,
Aurora Expanded has been all week.
And then the bigger part is tomorrow, and it expands into the Cedars where Ro2 Art is, and then the MAC is reopening, and you're being programmed as part of the MAC and Cedars Union's expanded performance at Four Corners Brewery. What are the hours?
I think 7 p.m. to midnight.
7 to midnight. Wow, a lot of roaming and
yeah, and I think it's exciting to think about Aurora, which usually has been in the Arts District, in a new location at City Hall, which is such a dramatic and cool place. And then, you know, crossing the highway is really interesting because it's definitely an area that a lot of pedestrians probably don't feel comfortable going. You know, and for like my piece especially, I think that area is getting developed and changing and transforming. And so, you know, Mall Mandala is sort of like a weird utopian consumer space, and that's slowly where everywhere it seems to be headed.
And for those who do transverse the highway by foot, I think it'll be an interesting kind of weird utopian oasis visiting the Mall Mandala. Yeah,
and I think that's the goal of the curatorial theme of Aurora, is like future worlds. So I think, and Andrew Scott from UTD has a piece on the next door building, which pictures, I think, some different kinds of architecture projected aerially, and so it's kind of interesting to have that interplay between
and
spaces.
On these old buildings and whatnot too. How cool! Well, we're running out of time, but your show at Ro2 is being extended into the new year.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Not into the new year. Excuse me. Big difference. Into December. Into the first week of December.
Exciting.
So we will. There'll be another event on December 1st at the MAC at night, and we'll have a closing for that
Good
show.
to know.
Yeah, cool. It's just come about, and so you can interact with the video that we saw roaming around the parking lot, and then perhaps there'll be more video programming, and meditate in front of the Mall Mandala, which we have behind us, virtually behind us,
in real life.
And
right.
and in real life,
Right now.
sometimes it's behind us in real life. So anyway, it's a pleasure always talking to you, and I encourage everyone to come out and see the show, and to Aurora tomorrow night.
Yeah, thank you, Jordan.
You bet. All right, that's it for today.